thank you all for coming. Whew, I can't even get through the first sentence. Okay. Thank you for coming so much. I know every one of you. I just thank you for being here. Mama loved every one of you. And obviously you loved her. Because this is our second celebration of life, really. But first of all, I want to thank Reverend Betty. Oh my God, do I love this woman. She was so good to my mama. She visited my mama every single week. And when she would be with my mama, she would hold her hand, she would look it straight in the eye, she would talk to her, because she knew how to deal with Alzheimer's patients, right? She knew all from having worked in nursing homes and everything that she's done in her history. She was so good with my mama. She fed mama if mama wasn't eating. She shoved it down her. She did. She fed her. She conferred with the nurses. If anything was not right, she let me know. And she was always there whenever I'd come in every 3 or 4 months. And Shirley would come, and Sue, and Aunt Nancy, and we'd have dinners, and Richard would be there too, and it was just wonderful. And she always ended up her visit with Mama by praying with her, and held Mama's hands, and Mama would respond in kind. She, bowed her head. She knew still what to do. And so she would pray over all of us and for Mama every time she went, every week. And we can never thank her enough. And I mean that so sincerely. So my Mama and me both, our favorite Bible verse was Philippians 3, verses 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not upon your own understanding. Acknowledge him in every way, and he will direct your path. And he has proven that to me over and over and over, as he did my mama. So I want to give this to Reverend Betty. It's a little heart that says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. And I want you to hang it wherever you want, here at church or home. Think of my mama. That's an honor of her. Just thank you so much. And what a beautiful sermon she did this morning on love. It was absolutely perfect. So, okay. My mama, I forgot a Kleenex of all kinds. Hang on one
Look
second.
under there. I usually have to know that. Yeah.
Thank you. So, today, my mom had passed away on the night of the 23rd. And so that was this week. And so it's been 1 year. And my mama right now, her message to us would be that to rejoice and be happy, because I'm in heaven and I'm free of Alzheimer's. And you know what? If she's free of Alzheimer's. I'm envisioning her like she was 30, 40 years ago. And she is talking up a storm, which is what she did, right? She's a big old talker. And guess who inherited that? So I'll be doing a little talking for a while. I hope you all will help me, because I've just got to. Why am I doing this? I don't know. I needed to do a tribute to honor my mama. Now, the funeral was absolutely wonderful. Reverend Betty did a terrific job, and she did it all. I felt bad because Rick or I, neither one, we couldn't get together enough to do a eulogy, and I've always felt like that was lacking. I needed to do that, to honor my mama. And I just, the shock of her death, because it was pretty sudden, even though we had 4 years in Alzheimer's, and then just all of a sudden she quit eating, and I mean, not even long enough. Anyway, yeah, it was right away. I called hospice one day, she was gone that night, so it was crazy. But the funeral with the shock of her sudden death, the COVID restrictions. Now, we handled it well, and for most of you that came, really, we, you know, it was all right, but, you know, we had our mask on. We hugged anyway, even though we shouldn't have. And just the busyness of it all, I just couldn't get it together to do a eulogy for my mama. But Reverend Betty did a beautiful, beautiful service, and we appreciated it. But I just needed to, so this is for me, really, and so thank you for indulging me by letting me do this little tribute to my mama to honor her. And with that being said, knowing that she's in heaven, celebrating and being happy and talking, she's saying, whatever, I don't know, whatever. Do y'all remember her saying that? She could perseverate on those words. She just, whatever, I don't know. And now Aunt Nancy's kind of starting to say whatever. They've even given her a little sign that says,
I never realized I said it so often, but I catch myself and thinking, okay.
I own it. This is my mama's little sister, Aunt Nancy. There's 13 years between. And that's her daughter, Lorinda, who drove down from northern Indiana, and they look like twins, so you know it's her daughter. Okay, so my mama's idea of a funeral. All right, my mama's generation, oh my heavens, they did funerals. They did big old funerals, right? And so that was my mama's idea of a funeral. One more thing that I just felt bad because people couldn't come. We still had over 50 people that showed up and shouldn't have, but you know, probably would have been 200 if it had been a normal time, right? And not that matters to me, but it kind of did to mama. You know, funerals were always a big deal as she grew up, right? And so she talked about a funeral a lot, of course, and she had all her plans pre-done. And of course, her one order to me was always make sure I've got all purple flowers. I love purple, and I want all purple flowers. So, Mama, there you go. And we did have all purple flowers at the funeral too. But yeah, so that's in honor of Mama. And thank you, Diane Lawson Thrasher, who helped me put that together yesterday. And we're going to take those flowers and put it in a saddle. And put it on the tombstone. So that fills my heart that we're doing that because Mom would be so happy. She used to put purple flowers on the tombstone that she wasn't in yet, and Daddy was. He didn't like purple, but she still was putting her purple flowers on there. And I'd always say, you need to put red, white, and blue because Daddy was a Marine, you know. So I'd put red, white, and blue, and she'd put her purple. So, okay, so when Mama was a little girl, every Sunday, she used to drag Nancy and me around to all the cemeteries. We'd have to go to Palmyra, Greenville, and out in the other areas out there where my grandma and grandpa's relatives were buried. And we went out there pretty often. And I'd say, Mama, why is this so important to you? And I'm like, oh, every Sunday, you know, came to church right here. My mama grew up in this church. And every Sunday came to church, went home, had a big old Sunday dinner, and then you went to the cemetery. Every Sunday. That was the practice. You know, you honored your relatives. And so no wonder it was so important to her, you know, for a big funeral and the cemetery. And we would, you know, we'd always make sure Grandma and Grandpa had nice flowers. I put new flowers up on their tombstone yesterday for Mama. So anyway, it took me later in life before I understood the importance of funerals and stuff, because you know the newer generations especially, you know, we're being cremated. We don't even care that we're in a cemetery, nothing. But that was Mama's generation, and I respect that. And so, again, I felt kind of bad I didn't get to fulfill all of her dreams of a funeral. So that's just one more reason why I needed to do this today, so thank you. All right. Mama's life revolved around church, farm and gardening, her work, when she did work, her sports, and her family. That was her life in a nutshell. My mama loved the church so much. Her mom and dad, came to this church for, I don't know if they grew up here too. I don't really know that. But all their life they came to this Greenville United Methodist Church. Mama grew up here. She met my daddy here. I don't know if y'all know that. But he was a Marine fresh out of the war. And he came to visit Sue Warren's daddy, Uncle Button, my Uncle Button, beloved Uncle Button, who and her mama, Aunt Fern, who I was born on her birthday. And they lived up on 150, Marshall's house. If you knew the Marshalls way back then, anyway, that's where they lived. And so Daddy, out of the war, came to visit his brother. They came to church here. Mom and Daddy met. Isn't that a beautiful story? This is all around this church. It's wonderful. And so, of course, they got married here. Mama's best friend got married the week before, and they stood up with them. And then the next week, Mom and Daddy got married here, and they stood up with them. So that was great. So and then Mama, of course, insisted that Rick and I be raised up in this church where we were, and I'm so proud of that. We both got a wonderful foundation in this church, and I'll cherish it forever. And even after we took the keys away from Mama at 85 years old, because she was should be driving. So we took those keys away, and even then she would try to walk to church for WSCS, and she was caught on the road. Where are you going? And Reverend Betty started picking her up, and she always picked her up and brought her to church every Sunday, and the WSCS meetings and everything. So, again, Reverend Betty took care of my mama for us, and we didn't live here, so we said, we appreciate it so much. So yeah, this church meant everything. Okay, my mama was a farmer. She was a farmer and a gardener to the max. She loved farming. And my mama grew up as a farmer. If y'all are familiar, the Sunny Acres farm out there on 150, that was my grandma and grandpa's farm. My papa built that house and that barn and that silo, and that's where Mama grew up. And Mama was an only child till she was 8 years old, and Papa used my mama as his farm hand. And she didn't stay in the house with Grandma. She was always out on that farm. Excuse me. And when Nancy was born, they had some kind of discussion about, well, you got the first one, so I get this one. Because Mama was always with her daddy, who she adored. She loved her daddy. And so that's why she always had such a love of farming and of cows, driving a tractor, and planting a garden. Mama had a Shetland pony named Sugar. And she told a story about being once out on 150, and I don't think she's supposed to have been, and that Sugar would not go forward. He only went backward, and he backed all the way up that hill of 150. So she had a great childhood, she really did. And it was a rough childhood because Grandpa, my grandfather's father had a stroke, and he was pretty much bedbound. And so the mother-in-law lived in the house. So sometimes it was not a totally happy child. But that grandma played with Nancy, and Nancy loved her so much because she was a playmate of hers. So just a little history of my mama. And then when my mom and daddy got married, they lived in that little white house that's on that farm. And we lived there till I was 2 years old. And then when they got the chance to buy the house on Bradford Road, that Henry Taylor built. Then they built that house, and, or Henry Taylor built the house, and then they bought it, and then we moved in. And then 2 or 3 years later, they had the opportunity to buy the farm, or a few years later, and they bought it from Mr. Montgomery. And they took a big risk and got in a lot of debt to buy 49 acres. But, oh, they were so happy to have a farm, because Mom and Daddy really did enjoy, both of them, all that farming and having cattle and all that they did. And we had pigs for a long time, but when they were at the high market. And so Mama loved having that big old garden, and she canned everything she could way back then, and then got to where she was freezing stuff. But she always had a competition with herself every year to have a big red ripe tomato by the 4th of July. Anybody got a red tomato here yet? No? That was always her goal, shit, when I call her and talk. You got a red tomato yet, Mama? Not yet. I don't know if I'm gonna make it this year. So Mama liked big boys or better boy tomatoes. And she loved her corn. She planted Silver Queen or peaches and cream. And you all know how she loved to share her harvest of her garden. And I'm sure she brought tons of it up here. And she would put it on the back porch on the table and just tell everybody to come and get it. You know, I don't have to be home, just come and drive up and get it. And lots of you did, I do hope. So she loved to give. She loved her garden and doing that. And Wayne Lawrence, Mama's neighbor, almost like a stepson, he built a garden right next to Mama's, and they would garden together too. She loved doing that. And she taught Jenny how to can. Wayne's wife Jenny taught her how to can and put up stuff. And she's told me so many times, Vicki, I love your mama like I love my own. And she taught me so much about gardening and how to live out here in Greenville and on a farm. So she loved that so much. So Mama loved her cattle, and she loved raising those cattle so much. And I had to have this picture blowed up of my mama. One time she had twin white-faced cattle and calves, and she looked at that face. She was so happy. This is my mama in her element. Twin calves. She was elated. She called me and said, "You got to get out here. We've got twins." She was so happy. Isn't that my mama? That's the one everybody knows. For sure. We had fun doing that yesterday, didn't we, Daddy? Okay, and then work. So my mama was one of the first original super moms. She worked full time. She came home and would put supper on, did a lot of pressure cooking, go out and farm for 2 or 3 hours till dark, and then come in and we'd have a big old supper. So yeah, she was unbelievable. I was always real proud of my mama. She was real smart. She graduated in New Albany, I think valedictorian, salutatorian, one of those. She was real smart. And her parents wanted her to go to college. Mama and Papa wanted all of them to go to college, and Mom was the only one who didn't go. And but Mom wouldn't hear of it. She didn't want to go to school anymore. She wanted to get out and get a job. And she was fiercely independent, and so that's exactly what she did. So Mama got a job, and she was a teletypist. They don't have such things anymore now, you know. But she was with A&P, if y'all remember A&P Grocery. And she worked in the produce division over on Algonquin Parkway. And luckily, Daddy worked at LG&E, where Neil works, and his daddy worked too. So they were able to drive together, and Daddy dropped Mama off at Algonquin and then go on down to wherever he was working. But, and Mom and Daddy even raised sweet corn for AMP one year. I remember they worked themselves to death doing that. We only did it 1 year too. It was really hard. But Mama always excelled in her job, her office jobs. She always did a really good job and usually ended up pretty much running any office that she worked in, because she was very, good at what she did and very efficient. Mama worked for AMP for many, many years. I don't know exactly how many, but AMP went bankrupt just less than 2 years short of my mama getting her full pension and retirement. So she kind of got robbed there. And then she went to work for other various places. She worked for Grace Fertilizer, and Peyton is a subsidiary of Kroger, and Bluegrass Hardware Warehouse. And you,
S&T. S&T Hardware.
S&T Hardware, thank you. My brother got that right. He usually remembers all that kind of stuff. Rick helped me with a lot of these facts, so thank you. So anyway, Mama was always such a good hard worker, but then she'd come home and make a big supper and then go out and farm. Like I say, she was just a super mom. And then there's sports. Oh, how my mama loved her sports. Did she though? She was such an IU basketball fan, at least, but a lot of other sports teams too. And my brother reminded me that my mama played basketball at New Albany High School when the girls they only played half court. They weren't allowed to do full court where they played basketball back then, so that's funny. And she and Daddy both, they were such big sports fans that was something they really enjoyed together, so that was very nice. She enjoyed the Cincinnati Reds. She would get up early in the morning and go do her gardening while it was cooler, and then she'd come get in the hammock. I gave her a new hammock every year on Mother's Day, because she'd pull that hammock out and lay out in the sun, wouldn't she? Wait. And she'd lay out in the sun and listen to a Cincinnati Reds ball game on the radio. So that she loved doing that. And then when it cooled off, she'd go back to the garden and hoe some more. But Rick and I gifted her with a great big flat screen TV. So she had 2 TVs in her living room, if you've been in her living room. So she could watch 2 different teams at the same time. And Mama, she got in the habit of doing the statistics from my brother's sports games that when he was in high school. And so she would sit there and do statistics on games that she watched. Well, she took them for many years. So she certainly did love her sports. She loved watching IU basketball, and Rick always remembers how she always had popcorn, and he would send her those big old bucket things of popcorn, all different flavors. And then she got to where she'd make popcorn cakes with that marshmallow stuff and peanuts, and M&Ms. She loved to make those. And, or Arnie's Pizza. Arnie's Pizza was always a big thing. And Daddy and Rick would always get on Mom and me, because we'd go get the pizza and it never made it home complete. And I got one the other night that didn't make it home either. But anyway, so Mama's favorite teams were IU, of course. She also loved U of L and Arkansas, because Daddy's from Arkansas, so they were always Arkansas fans. And then Rick went to Ohio University, so OU. And then when Thad went to Kansas, especially, Kansas became one of their top ones too. In fact, when Thad played football for Kansas University, Mom and Daddy in 1995, they went to Oahu to see Thad play in the Aloha Bowl. And oh my God, that was just absolutely wonderful. Steve and I hadn't been out of PT school too long. We just bought a brand new house in Louisville, big old house, and we in debt up to here. And Mama said, "You got to go to Oahu and see Thad." I thought, "Oh, Mom, I can't. We just bought this house and furniture and all. I can." You take out a credit card, you are going with us. Yes, ma'am. So boy, I did, and spin it up. And I'm so glad we did. Cause, oh, we had a wonderful time. The whole family was there, you know, and so we stayed on Waikiki Beach and went to see Thad at the Aloha Bowl, play football, so it was great. And then when Steve and I moved to Maui, on Thanksgiving, they had the Maui Invitational every year. And it was, I think 8 teams always came. And every year, it was either IU or U of L or Kentucky. It was the big one, Kansas. There's always a big one. So Mom came to Maui 3 or 4 times, just, you know, and always on Thanksgiving. And she would bring Stacy, our granddaughter. She'd bring Stacy with her to be her travel companion. And we would make sure we got tickets to the pre-tournament dinner. And Mom got to meet Steve Alfred. Oh, she just about died. She couldn't believe she got to meet Steve Alfred. And then later on, we met Rick Pitino, which now I'm not real proud of that, but so, yeah, we had glorious memories of when Mama would come to Maui. I've got so, and the pictures I've got of her she's just beaming. She's so happy. But, you know, we were all together. I mean, that's Daddy, after Daddy passed, Daddy died in 98. He died really young. So, Mama came and I've got one picture of her coming down the water slide at the resort where Rick was staying, and she's like, ah! It's a great picture. And we always made signs for ESPN, you know, how you make signs and then you'll get on TV. So we'd always do the ESPN, you know, about whatever team we were watching. So we always had a big project in making that sign. So my mama loved her sports, and it was a real fun thing that we all shared. So lastly, family. And speaking of family, I've got a couple of cousins who wanted me to share their thoughts. Carolyn Goebel Danner lives up on 335. She said, my mom, who was Aunt Onita Goebel, yeah, and she and Mama had shared a bad birthday, so they were real close. And she said, my mama thought Helen had done so well that she made it. She made it in the business world. She liked and she couldn't believe that she was doing so good in business while still seeing to it that Rick and Vic were well cared for. She had the strength for the farm work and even for bringing in logs to chop for heat. She did her own chopping up wood for that heat stove she had in her living room till she wasn't able. Then the cattle, she was always keeping track and naming them for people of the family or whoever. And was always out working and mending fence. She was a very versatile woman. And I think that's definitely true. And then my cousin Doug Cunningham, y'all remember Uncle Ralph? Lived over here. This is his youngest son, Doug, who came to the funeral. So he lives up in northern Indiana and Marco Alabama. Doug said, your mom had wholesome goodness and a positive attitude, as I will always remember her. And that warms my heart. But my mama loved us so much, she gave us everything. She spoiled us something awful. That's just all there is to it. Didn't realize it then, though, did I? She was so good to us. She saw to it we had it all. And that's one of the reasons she went back to work. When I think Rick was like 4, or I was 4. Anyway, she went back to work to make sure we could have it all. And Beth was telling me the other day how my daddy would dole out. She got to spend $10 a week for groceries and everything. So things were pretty tight, I guess, especially after they bought the farm. But I always would nag at my mama because she was out in the professional world, but she wouldn't get her hair fixed. You know, there were so many women, they got their hair fixed every single week, you know, and always looked so nice. And Mom just wouldn't spend that kind of money on herself. And she wouldn't buy new clothes, But if I had a dance coming up, you know, or anything at all special in high school, old Vic got it, got my hair fixed. We used to go to Lane's on, anyway, Elaine and I used to go to Lane's and got big old hairdos, you know. Mom let me do that, and I got new clothes, you know, so she's pulled me something off. Well, and Rick too, you know, we had bass weegens and whatever the latest thing was, you know. Anyway, but one of the things that my brother wanted to share that he still remembers because it touched him so is that when Rick went on a recruiting trip to Athens, Ohio, the University of Ohio, which is where he ended up going. It was a 5-hour drive, and I don't remember what was going on with Daddy at the time, but Mama drove Rick up by himself, went and got a room, waited all weekend while he did his interviewing and everything, and then drove him back on Sunday. And then when Rick was accepted and he went up there to school once again, that time Mama drove the 5 hours up there, dropped him off, helped him get settled in the dorm, and then turned around and drove right back the same day. So that meant a lot to my baby brother. So, and then also, as far as family concerned, of course, my mama loved her own family like crazy. But something very beautiful about my mother is that she loved my daddy's family just as much. She was crazy about the Warrens and the Blaisdells, and they her. And cousin Erlena, before they moved to Arkansas, she stayed and babysitted us for a time. Juanita Lynn babysitted us for a time. Because Mama worked, you know, so we had a lot of babysitters. And they tried to get Erlena to, you know, to come live with them. And but she ended up going on home with her mom and daddy. But she loved the Blaisdells and the Warrens, and we went to Arkansas every year for, you know, for a vacation to see everybody, and then the reunion. We always had to make it to the reunion. And many a time, I drove Mom to Arkansas to visit, and we'd always try to go to the Blaisdell-Warren reunion. I always said it ought to be Warren-Blaisdell, but they insisted it's Blaisdell-Warren reunion. What?
B comes before W.
Of course, the Blaisdell's saying that. But the Warrens were better looking. So my mama, she loved it, but we got, this is Uncle Button's daughter, Sue, and his son Steve's wife, Shirley, and my cousin Eleanor, who also took care of an Alzheimer's mama for many, many years, so she knew so well. She was really good with my mama too, for that reason. So anyway, my mama was beautiful the way she loved that side of the family, just like her own. So, what can I say? I am proud to say I am her daughter. And whatever, I don't know, whatever. But I read a quote last night that I thought my mother would probably appreciate. Michael Jordan said it. And he said it in regards to Kobe Bryant when he died. When Kobe Bryant died, a piece of me died. And that's exactly how I feel. Boy, do I miss my mama. And even though she was 4 years in an Alzheimer's unit, you'd think you'd be a little bit more prepared when she goes. But it's your mama, that's it, you know. And even when I came home and she couldn't even talk hardly anymore, we'd still hug. We'd lay in the bed, we'd spoon in her bed. And I'd do my cell phone and I'd put it on video, and she'd touch it and look at it, she'd laugh, we'd talk. So she was still in there, you know. So, yeah, you just never get over your mama. As I've had so many wonderful friends come to, even in Florida, I've been gifted with stuff. I've got a special little shade garden now with a plaque to her. Oh, and I took home one of the hostas in the front yard, and it died off. And I was sad that he came back this year, so I'm hoping it's gonna continue to survive, so I've got a piece of my mama. But anyway, thank you all so much for coming. I hope I haven't bored you too much, but I just had to do some kind of a tribute and honor the memory of my special, special mama. I adored her so much. And if anybody else have any memories they would like to share, we'd love to hear it. Beth, you want to come
Want me to
up?
go first?
Pardon?
I'll go first.
Yeah, sure.
Since
Wonderful.
before Debbie. Aunt Helen called me up one day while I was taking care of my mom. And she says, I want you to go with me to the mother-daughter dinner here at Greenville Baptist Church. Because my daughter is in Maui. And you're taking care of your mom, so your mom's, I just feel like we should go together. And it is always just right, wonderful memories every time that I think about that she would think of me to call me to go to the mother-daughter dinner.
Thank you, Eleanor. That was very sweet of you.
And she was sweet to ask me.
First of all, I came up and our kids and grandkids and so on came up in a wonderful neighborhood. And there's very few of us old ones still left. Even another generation, grandchildren and all that stuff. And one of the best neighbors was Helen. And our families weren't kin, but we had kin that was kin to each other. I don't know what you call that. But what I want to tell all of you wonderful Methodists is, when it came up years ago, whether there was going to be Galena or there was going to be Greenville Methodist Church, Helen was on the board, and it was her casting of her ballot that kept this church where it is. Now, I think that's pretty great.
Well, otherwise we would have been Galena Church.
And this church is so beautiful.
Yes, it is. I agree.
Yes, it is, and you all have maintained it so beautifully. It's great. Anybody else want to say anything?
How many people who are here today got married here in this church?
Oh, yeah.
We did.
You both got married here, anybody else get married here? I didn't get married here. I got married over at Christian church, but.
Well, I can remember, of course, I grew up across the street from Helen
Uh-huh.
with our parents, so I knew Helen and Jack my whole life. And in the neighborhood, Beth, you probably, who was the neighborhood dog?
Oh, Luigi.
Luigi. Luigi, and we get up, and back then, the school bus wasn't gonna stop in front of your house. So we had to walk down to Beth's house to all catch the bus. And Luigi would meet us in the morning, and he would walk us all down to the corner. And then when we get off the bus at the evening, he didn't know what time the bus was gonna be there, and he would walk everybody back to wherever they had to go get off. And so, he's like the neighborhood dog and everything. I mean, just the sweetest dog you ever saw. But your mother, and sports, I'd go over and visit her after we moved back, and stuff. And every envelope that she had a letter on had some kind of sports statistic on it, whatever she was watching. And I think Rick would come in. The fun time for her was bowl season when all the football games happened. And if Rick would come in, they would sit over there and eat popcorn and watch football games and
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
And then March Madness for basketball. And she had those TVs going, and nothing made her happier than that.
Rick, he still misses being with Mom during March Madness.
And I can remember, I was like, when we moved back 19 years ago, she would still go out and mow her front yard with an old G tractor.
Yeah.
And when you started it up, the belts all wet and the blades and everything, and she'd be out there in her shoes that had a hole in them and everything else, and she pushed down on the clutch to stop it, and her foot was that far above one of the pulleys, about an inch and a half. And I mean, she was 60s or so then, and she'd be out there on the side of that hill just mowing and my wife said, I wanna be Helen when I grow up. Be a strong woman like she is and just doing everything, that she needed to do to maintain that house and stuff. She was a remarkable woman.
My
Thank you.
son Dean, is a little bit older than Neil, when he was little, he had a pacifier. And it came time that he needed to get rid of it, but he wouldn't turn loose of it. Well, I finally got it and hid it. And I told him, I said, Luigi got your pacifier. And he believed that for a long time, but one time I was going through the cedar chest and he was there. He said, there's my pacifier. I wouldn't tell that if he was here.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, Luigi, remember, he didn't have a tail, cause he got run over.
Yeah.
On Bradford Road, he got run over, and that tail literally brought it on. He didn't have a tail, but he sure was a sweet old puppy dog. And I wish, what, Mr. Sokol?
Go ahead, finish what you were saying.
I was just gonna say, I was told he would follow the school bus up to school and play with the kids in recess till they went in. Then he'd come back home.
I was gonna say, I didn't really get to know your mom and dad till I moved out here to Greenville. I think it was in that early 1980s until your father passed away and your mother passed away. I had some great memories of the time we would go to ball games and I remember one time I went up there, they had 2 TVs going, but your dad would set earphones on. So he was not watching 2 games, he was listening to another game. What a wonderful tribute you've given to your mother here, everything she said. Just a great, great person. And I got to know your dad real well during those 20 years. We go to ball games together and just have a wonderful time.
And you'd argue over who was mayor of Greenville.
Indiana was.
And building a zoo. We're gonna build a zoo.
Indiana was doing well, we'd say, we're tearing up like a mighty south.
Yeah. One of Daddy's expressions.
It's a wonderful time.
Yeah. One of my daddy's expressions that I'm making, signs now. And I'm gonna make one for my brother that, one of Daddy's expressions. You're my favorite hoss, even though you never won a race. He'd say that to the grandkids.
Your dad liked the, Tennessee, or Texas, Dallas Cowboys. He was a big, strong.
Oh, yeah, Mom loved the Dallas.
Dallas Cowboys, they loved those.
Yeah, they did, big cowboy fans.
But they won a lot of Super Bowls back in those days, too.
Yeah. Yeah, Thad took Rick to that stadium recently, yeah. Or, a few years now.
I know whenever you get Don and Jack together, you continuously laugh now.
Yeah, yeah.
They're hilarious.
Yeah, it was fun to sit in the living room
Oh, that was.
when Don came to visit.
Many an hour in your living room, many an hour.
Yeah. I remember her car, her last car, she had to give up, finally had to give up her license. And my son still got that car back.
Does he still?
Now, I remarked to him, everybody who looks at it, I said, look at all 4 corners and see how many scrapes and scratches are on each bumper of that car. Of course, he's running into stuff, so that's why I said,
Yeah.
and her garden made mine look sick every year.
Oh, I know.
Every year. She had weed, no weeds at all. I grew weeds. She's a good old lady. Jenny misses being here too.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah,
You tell her we spoke of her, okay?
okay.
Vicki,
Yes.
if Steve were here, he probably would want to tell this story about when she worked at A.
Your son? Your husband?
Yes, if he was
Okay.
here, he'd want to share that, because we would laugh about that story. But, and you probably can tell it in more detail, but when she worked at A and B, and she got her check, and she got
for lunch or something around there, yeah. They tried to steal her purse, right? Yeah, she's a tough old codger, as my daddy would say.
She was like, I remember when, Rick had the wedding, oh, my goodness. Couldn't believe he get there during March Madness, we go there.
Oh, that's right. Rick got married on that weekend. And Floyd Central was going to state. That was when Floyd Central, right, because you all didn't come, Beth. You all went to Rick's wedding.
They were still playing games. They hadn't made it that far yet.
Okay, well, yeah.
But,
Oh.
they took the ball game and put it in the reception room in there and everybody watched TV while they got married there. They didn't let the thing drop it. They watched the ball game. I thought that was the funniest thing to take.
That's my family, yeah. Kitty Canesa. Thanks for coming. My Kitty Canesa, I don't know if y'all know it, but when my mama got to where she really couldn't handle having cattle anymore, especially in the wintertime, you know, she had no business being out on the ice and snow and stuff. So Kitty would bring 2 of his calves over in the spring and put them in her 4 acres area. And so she had some calves to watch grow all summer long, and then he'd come back and get them late in the fall. You were so good to my mama, Kitty. And Daddy, they loved you to pieces.
I never knew until he comes to my house to buy a cow.
Really? That's how you met my daddy? And Michelle worked at Lincoln Hills and took care of my mama. And I love you to pieces, Michelle. You were so good to my mama.
I love you too.
And when mama got to where she couldn't walk, and when you have to transfer her from the chair to the bed or whatever, mom would literally push against you, which kind of happens a lot in Alzheimer's and dementia. And Michelle would do it all by herself. And I'd say, girl, you're gonna have a bad back like mine. All the time, I'm worried about her. Please get help, please get help. Michelle, and my mama would respond for Michelle. She'd do stuff for Michelle that she wouldn't for the others. She'd stand up in the bathroom and hold the bar. Yeah, Michelle was magical with mama. Thank you, Michelle, you were wonderful.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have anything they want to say about my mama?
Just want to say how faithful your mother was to this church. She was here every Sunday, Sunday school, women's meeting, we had a dinner, she brings some of that fresh produce. It was great, we loved her.
Yeah, and thank you all too for tolerating several years of her not being real clean and not having clean food and stuff. She was really declining, but y'all put up with her and kept me posted. Reverend Betty's the one that found her on the floor that morning.
No, it was Patty and Terry.
Found her on the floor?
Yeah.
And she had.
I was on my way, but I had already called, because I had called her, and I couldn't get her to answer. So I had called someone, and Patty and Terry were the ones that actually found her.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah. But I'm not gonna remember that.
Okay.
But before the way she was, right? That's how we want to remember people when they were vibrant. Like how we've talked about her today. Yes, Loretta.
I remember a vibrant encourager. Your mama was always asking about my basketball, and she was always interested in my sports and my schooling, and just come to my games and encourage everything that I was doing and ask about. And, she was just warm and loving and welcoming. about how peaceful I felt at your family home and how special the garden was and the porch. Just sitting on that porch on the concrete and watching the days go by, like summer days, just peaceful, easy. I remember Lemon. We talked about Luigi, but there was later in life, there was another elf pet that was a cat.
Yeah,
She loved her Lemon, and
she sure did.
she loved what? We have lots of family recipes that we refer to as Aunt Helen's cranberry salad that we do every Thanksgiving. I remember her green beans, and I still ask Mom to make Aunt Helen's green beans. I don't know if they're really Aunt Helen's green beans, it might be Mom's, but I thought of them as Aunt Helen's. And Tom and I got together and we had our first Thanksgiving at Aunt Helen's. And
She was very welcome,
yeah.
very welcome.
And his oldest son won the sectional in baseball and came up to play Clarksville. And Clarksville was really good. And Clarksville was supposed to trample Lawrenceburg, and Aunt Helen was all about it. She was gonna go to the game, and she was now a Lawrenceburg baseball fan. And she was sending us all the clippings that was saying Clarksville was gonna trample Lawrenceburg, and she came to the
We
game.
shared those clippings with the team
Yeah.
all week long, and,
Wow.
they were, by the time they got to the regional, they were so fired up. They ended up winning almost by a 10-run rule.
In the first inning.
With Aunt Helen sitting next to me cheering the whole way.
Oh, that's great.
I just appreciated her, you know, she was just a really well-rounded woman, right? I mean, she could sing too, which I didn't even know she could sing until later in her life when she was with Silver, I can't remember the name of the. Yeah, she loved.
Silver tones.
Silvertones?
Silvertone, yeah. Yeah, she was having to walk with a walker, even a rolling walker. And I got her one that had to sing, so, because she couldn't stand that long to sing, because they went around different places and sang all over.
Right.
Yeah, she loved to sing.
And the last time we visited her in the home, she still knew who I was. And she was asking all about how school was going. Now, I think she thought I was still back at Floyd Central, but instead of teaching school, but she wanted to know how school was. So, and a lot of, you know, the one thing we haven't said though, is how much she loved you and Rick. I mean, she would just, anytime I saw your mama, she just well up with pride about her son and daughter and her grandkids, you know, and just loved you too and your family beyond, you know, words. So just a really special role model.
She also shared her love with, you know, the cousins and everything.
Yeah.
And every one of us. Very loving mama, she sure was. Thank you, Loretta.
I think she got all that from, well, I was gonna say Grandma and Grandpa Warren, but, that would have been your dad.
Yeah.
He was mean.
He was a baby, he was a rascal.
He was No, you know, but Grandma and Grandpa Warren were just always so wonderful to all of us.
Oh, my mama loved you.
Oh, absolutely.
Grandma did.
Everybody did.
They loved me back.
Everybody did. It was just, you know, I don't know. We just had a wonderful, we have a wonderful family.
Yes,
We
amen.
come from a wonderful family.
And cookies. She loved to make cookies.
Thank you.
But, so this
Thank
recipe,
you, Loretta.
well, this book, I was flipping through it, and there's an envelope, as you said, she wrote on, and I told my husband, I was like, I must get it genetically. So she's writing on all this envelope, and it's got her whole list of cookies she made in 1999. And there is a list: oatmeal scotchies, heat milk chocolate drop. I mean, this is like 25. And then in 2000, she made about 3/4 of the ones she made in 1999. So
I got
that's
a friend
been,
in that. That's great. Oh, did anybody ever eat my mama's cookies? But you had to be careful, because she cracked her own walnuts from her walnut tree up on the, up back at the barn. And so there'd be shells, and so it was at your own risk. But you're right, my mama made, she'd make 4 or 5 different kinds every day during all